Timothy Bratton, and my beautiful, lovely wife,
Veronica.
Our ministry, his ministry, is Crack Clay, building a affair-proof marriage God's way. Do it God's way.
Oh, wait, I didn't tag Tim. Let me do that. Keep talking.
God's way. One of my favorite, when I went to Liberty back in the late 70s, early 80s, the chancellor of the school, Jerry Falwell Sr., said, "Nothing of eternal significance ever happens apart from prayer. You do not determine a man's greatness by his talent or wealth, as the world does, but rather by what it takes to discourage him." I got some great news if you're a born-again Christian and you're on your way to heaven. Jesus is coming soon. Let me read something here in Matthew. Matthew 16. "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." One of my favorite verses of the whole Bible is, "For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and will then repay every man according to his deeds. Truly I say to you, there are some of us, maybe us, some of us who are standing here who will not taste the earthly death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." And all these signs of what's going on right now. All my life, especially after I became a Christian, I was like, Jesus, I want to be here when you come. That could happen. We are seeing the handwriting on the wall. Go ahead, baby.
So it's been a week, hasn't it? We've had quite the week, guys. So we're going to talk a little bit about that before we get into my husband's
number one need. It's emotional need. Explain that. Well, let me go back. And so, honey, I had a post here 3 days ago. The handwriting's all on the wall, guys. The communism, it happens in Cuba, Russia, KGB, these secret police in all these communist countries. The handwriting is on the wall. The first thing you want to do, I just read something about the Weather Underground back in the 70s, 80s, communism. How they first want to, police brutality is evil. And they want the law, they want to cause chaos. And then they want to come in there. That's why a lot of these criminals are being released in prisons. The KGB were people that supported the revolution. And they used them police to keep their order, to restore their order. It's all taking place, guys, right now. The last of the last days is happening right in front of us. What I just read Matthew there. So it's kind of exciting time as a Christian. Okay? God is in control and he's in charge. But the communist, the socialist, that's why it's so important as us to stand up for biblical truths. Because Jesus made everyone, red, yellow, black, and white, for who they are, in God's image. And he even made them for a reason and a purpose. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose its soul? How clear it is today from God's way and the devil's way. Oh my goodness. Communism, police brutality, okay? Restore order. Communism is everywhere in our universities, in a lot of National Council of Churches, in the media, to destroy the America, because the devil hates America because it was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Okay, it's all coming to an end. God is going to win in the end. So give your life to Jesus. One reason why it's so important that we're talking about tonight, his needs, her needs, because you know what the devil wants? The devil wants more than anything for your marriage to break up. One reason, you know why? Because if he can break up mom and dad, he's got maybe a child. He can influence a whole lot more than it would, because God made man and woman to be parents of a child. You know what the devil wants? He wants to break up that union. He wants to break up that union. So he knows if that child's being raised by a single mother, single dad, and they're at odds with each other, he's got a good chance of that child maybe being Antifa, whatever it's called.
You said it right.
That's very true. That's very true. The devil's out to seek and destroy. And you know where he starts that?
In the home.
From not getting each other's needs.
In the home.
In the
So
home.
that's one of the reasons we have our ministry, is because we want, as we've said every week, we want to teach you to have keep an affair-proof marriage.
Affair-proof marriage.
God's way. But I do want to talk about, it has been quite a week with all the unrest in our country.
Right.
And even here in our state, in our city, even here in Lynchburg, which was surprising to me. I told Tim last week I was so excited when I went to bed Sunday night that we lived here in wonderful Lynchburg, and because we saw protests were happening in Richmond. But you know what? We woke up Monday morning and it was happening right here where we are. We've witnessed it this week. It's been a hard week emotionally for everyone.
We understand it. We understand
for
Floyd.
everyone.
We understand.
And so just what we want to say is that
peaceful protest is awesome. Go ahead.
The peaceful protests are constitutionally protected, and they are awesome. And we were outraged too when we saw George Floyd, the police officer's leg on the back of his neck. That was horrible.
8.5 minutes or something.
That was horrible. It was horrible. I don't think I've heard anyone say that it was okay. Anyone say that it's okay. But I do feel like we've kind of gotten out of hand with this.
Big time.
And I don't even feel like it's about that anymore.
It may even be a setup.
I don't even feel like it's about George Floyd anymore. But so what we want to say is just that, like I posted a little while ago, an hour or so ago, to David Harris talking about how we were all given our skin color by the Creator.
Right.
We are all fearfully and wonderfully made. One of my favorite verses in the Bible, from Psalms 139. We are all fearfully and wonderfully made. We are all made in His image. It doesn't matter our color of our skin, the color of our eyes, the color of our hair, how tall we are, how short we are, how big, how little. It doesn't matter. We are all God's children. All of us. So I don't think that the problems start. I don't think the problem of what caused that to happen is solved by more hatred. On any side, hatred is never the answer. Bad behavior is never okay. That's what as a parent, I teach my children. I don't care what you're mad about. Bad behavior is never acceptable. Never. Use your words to have a discussion about the problem. Do not be violent to your siblings or to other fellow humans. Do not yell and scream and cuss them out. Don't treat them bad. All people of all races just want to be treated with dignity.
And respect.
And they all deserve it, because we are all God's children, as I said.
God made us all.
God made every one of us, and so we all deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. All of us.
Honey, Jesus is the answer. He's the answer. Communism, I think a certain political party in this country is being used by left-wing socialist communists for the blueprint of taking away our guns. They do this in every communist country. Everyone. Taking away our guns, police brutality. What's going to happen with that? I mean, what's going to happen with that? So, if we're in the end of the last days, this generation won't die, but we'll just go to heaven. I'm praying for that. If that's the case, that blueprint is being played out right in front of us, and that's going to separate the wheat from the tares. Let me say what I mean by that real quick. What I mean by that, if socialism takes over, the KGB, releasing all these prisoners, that's how the KGB started.
And I just
all these
posted it.
secret police from all these communist countries released a lot of people to prison, and there was a brutality, man, that upheld what they believed in, the strong arm of the communism. If they came in my house and pointed a gun in my head and said, "Are you a Christian? Do you deny Christ?" That's going to separate the wheat from the tare.
So I just shared right before we went live, again in the last hour from the Falkirk Center, an interview with Dinesh D'Souza, and whose wife is from Venezuela. And I didn't realize that in Venezuela that they have a private government-run enforcement agency. They defunded the police, and they're all the convicts, the felons who were let out of jail. So it was like shocking to me because I couldn't understand why we're doing this. Why are we letting people out again? And it makes sense anyway. But that's not what I was trying to say. But look at that video. She's from Venezuela, firsthand experience. All right.
What's better than one need, baby?
Well, no. I'm trying to let me finish.
I'm sorry.
What I need to say.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, baby.
So what I want to say is,
absolutely,
there are prejudices everywhere. Regardless of, I understand, while I am white, blonde hair, blue eyes, I did grow up in a family that I was adopted by a Native American. At the time we called them American Indian, but that's understandably not politically correct these days. But dark-skinned, my adopted mother is dark-skinned, Native American woman. It was the only light-skinned, blonde-haired, blue-eyed person go to visit her wonderful family in North Carolina, who I love dearly. I did not look like the rest of them. I did not. I understand that. And you know what? I watched racism against them in North Carolina. I experienced and firsthand witnessed racism against Native Americans growing up as a child. And also, then I grew up, and when I was first adopted at birth, but they lived in the city of Richmond. And in the city of Richmond, my first school I went to was a public city of Richmond school, and I was one of only 5 white kids. So I know what it's like to not look like everybody else around you. And so I can have empathy for that. I understand that. So I understand some of that, but I also know that I didn't. So I guess for me it's been really hard this week because I know what it's like to be different, and because I grew up surrounded by other people who were different, I never look at that. So for me it's been really hard because to just process this emotionally, because it's not something that I even think about when I think about who my friends are and people that I talk to or encounter. I don't think about. I just don't. I mean, it's just because I grew up in such a multicultural, where I was the only white person. I've seen prejudices as an adult. I've seen it when I traveled to the north, to Chicago and to Boston. I had the women really were nasty to me because I guess of my southern accent. I don't know. I don't know if they have a problem with short girls. I don't know if they have a problem with blonde hair. I don't know if they have a problem with a southern accent. But I experienced prejudices towards me as a female by other women in those areas. When I was 250 pounds 10, 15 years ago, size 22, I experienced prejudices towards a fat girl. When I lost weight, and since I've lost weight, now I experience people who don't want to talk to me, other women who are insecure because I'm thin now, and they don't understand that I worked hard to get to this. I worked hard for it, and there's no reason to hold it against me. So, and then growing up in poverty, in a 1-bedroom, very bad area of Henrico County with my Native American mother who was uneducated and worked a factory job, and with roach-infested apartment, I was looked down on because I grew up in that area from my classmates. So I remember sitting in history class in high school and having one of my classmates say, "Oh, well, we don't associate," because she lived across the street from my neighborhood, "we don't associate with people in that neighborhood. They're the Crestview trash." So imagine how that made me feel. So I understand a little bit about being looked down on, a lot about being looked down on. And so I get really angry. I get really passionate, as you see it, because I have just been taken that and not used that as an excuse to keep me back. I just used it to motivate me to do more with my life. And, but what I do know, as much as it hurt me, as much as it still hurts me when someone treats me badly, and as I said, there's never an excuse for bad behavior. What I do know is that the problem we're fighting is not each other. It's a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle. There's anger in people's hearts because you can't treat people with racism. You can't look down to people because they have less than you. You can't look down on people because they have more than you. And that's another thing. Now that I work hard and I've brought myself up to another level and I'm not living in poverty, then people want to look down on me for that. It's like there's always someone who's going to put you down. And you know what? You just got to let it go, because everything comes from Jesus. All comes from Jesus. So the problem is in that person, in their heart.
Right.
Their heart is a hardened heart. They need Jesus.
The same devil who who loves communism, hates America. That same one that has caused racism. The devil has caused racism. Mm-hmm. God is against racism. Red and yellow, black and white, we're all precious in His sight. That same devil wants to break up your marriage. Mm-hmm.
So we are all the human race.
Why is that?
We are all the human race. Human race. One race. Okay? So we're going to talk about needs. All right.
Okay, what's my number one need?
My husband's number one need is, at 63
it's
years
emotional.
Old, it's an emotional need. Now, all these needs are emotional. So while this may be physical, it's still an emotional need for men.
Right, okay.
It is sex. Sex.
Really?
Sex.
Would you?
Are you shocked about your number one?
Wild guess. Good job, honey. Great.
So,
thanks for.
The typical wife does not understand her husband's deep need for sex any more than the typical husband understands his wife's deep need for affection. How about that? So last week we talked about how we ladies really need affection, don't we? And how that kind of sets the tone for if he does a really good job with meeting our need for affection, then we're going to do a good job with meeting his need for sex, right? So marriage actually is very conditional because we're all human beings, right? It's supposed to be unconditional. It is, but we're humans. We are all humans. So it is conditional. So if a husband is not trying to meet her needs, then she's not likely to try to meet his. It's a matter of reciprocity, right? And
so they don't know what the happiness and fulfillment of the marriage is if they don't.
Right.
My wife and I met people in their 60s and 70s that finally understood it. Mm-hmm. And they wasted all those 10, 20, 30 years of going through marriage and then finally understanding it. That age, isn't that something?
Yes, it is. So, ladies, when your husband is pawing and grabbing, it's not just because it's a physical need for him. It's actually an emotional need. He actually needs something badly. He's not just turning into a lust monster, all right? So, when a man and woman get married, he trusts her to what? He trusts her to have sex with him, to be his only sexual partner.
His only sexual partner till death do us part. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. Before we're married, we're just all over her. We treat her. We put her on a pedestal. We open doors. We give her all the affection in the world and turns her on. And then after we get married, why do we stop that, men? And just want sex? Well, then we're only thinking about sex and ourselves, not our beautiful wife, because it goes together. Because affection is the environment of the marriage, sex is the special event. You can't have one without the other. Last week we talked about her number one need, affection, sexless affection. Okay? Now, and that's her number one emotional need. Her 5 biggest needs. This is my 5 biggest needs. Sex to men is emotional. That's how we share emotion with our wife.
Okay, so he trusts her to be available to him for sex when he marries her, and just like she's trusting him to meet her emotional needs. Well, sometimes that's not happening, and he may be going out of his way to meet emotional needs, but she's still not giving him sex, right? And some men will just tough it out because of their beliefs, and some won't. Some will go find sex somewhere else, unfortunately. And Harley says, or if you remember, this is the book we're doing, His Needs, Her Needs. Harley says that that more than half of all couples,
lost and saved, found,
go through the agony of unfaithfulness and affairs.
Over half.
Over half.
Something's going on wrong. You know, honey, unfortunately, in many marriages, the man finds that putting his trust to the woman has turned into one of the biggest mistakes of his life. He has agreed to limit his sexual experience to a wife who is unwilling to meet that vital need.
Yes. So most couples, though, can prevent the tragedy, right, of an affair. Prevention begins with understanding the differences in the two and having a desire to work on your marriage, right? Being intentional about your marriage, which we're hoping if you're here learning from us, that means you're ready, willing to be intentional. So there are 3 important differences in men and women when it comes to sex, right? There's the sex drive, their awareness of their own sexuality, and the primary reason why they have sex. So some of this gets a little touchy. So some of it will just skate on through. But
and we can call it making love.
We'll get to making love. Okay, so first is the sex drive. So we all know most men have much higher sex drive than the average woman, right? And this is because testosterone. The testosterone flows in abundance through him. And while women have a much shorter supply of testosterone. Now, a man's sex drive, though, is not the only reason he has a need for sexual fulfillment, is it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. The most important reason is that it's usually his number one emotional need. Okay, some men, as they get older, though, their testosterone decreases, and this may not be their number one need, all right? Well, we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, so that's number 1, which was the sex drive. Number 2, under the awareness of their sexuality. Well, sexual awareness is the understanding of one's own sexual experience and knowledge of how to respond sexually. So because boys start exploring this much earlier in their life, they usually come to, thank you, Raymond, they usually come to the experience of sex with their wife a little bit more knowledgeable, right? So typically the first sexual experience reported by men and women take place at essentially the same age. But their reports of the experience is remarkably different. Men usually think it's great, and women sometimes have disappointment because they don't know how to respond sexually and haven't figured it out yet. So when young men and women come together in marriage, that's often from the opposite ends of the spectrum. He's more experienced, she's less, and so he usually doesn't understand that, and so he has to learn how to help her to respond sexually, and he usually comes in not prepared to do that, right? So ladies and gentlemen, if this is a trouble area in your life, then you need to have communication. You just need to talk to each other about where it's lacking or what you need to do, and talk about what you like or you don't like.
But a man can't really be sexually satisfied unless his wife is.
Right.
How's that happen?
Right, because just giving your body to him and not enjoying it is not enough. He wants to actually have some responsiveness. So he can only feel sexually satisfied when she's enjoying it. And the third thing is sexual motivation. So if you asked your spouse, why do we make love? Your husband, if he's honest, will probably say because it relieves his sexual cravings.
But for the wife.
But the wife is very different. For her,
Closeness.
it's closeness. It's
to her husband.
It helps her feel close to him. If she's doesn't feel emotionally close to him, she doesn't want to make love to him, and that's why women call it making love, because it's an expression of love for us.
And that's why the husband has to meet her approval for affection. Mm-hmm. All day long. Foreplay starts in the morning around the breakfast table. All day long. Cherish her. Love her. You want to turn her on? Cherish her. Love her. Do things that she don't expect you to do. Bring notes, flowers, surprise her. Love on her. Kiss her in public. Mm-hmm. It's okay to kiss in public. I love when we kiss in public and show affection. People go, oh, people from just walk up to the oh, we love that. Isn't that awesome?
You never know.
They love that.
We'll be in the middle of it
because they want
start kissing. Yeah.
People want to be affectionate to each other. Why not be that way, especially to the lost? I mean, be that way to other people. Be a good example in your marriage. Okay.
So understanding the differences in how men and women approach sex, understanding that will really help to logically think through the problems that you're having, if you're having any that you face.
Right.
Okay. And then there, 5 parts to sex, and we're just going to scooch on over this, but the 5 stages of sex are willingness.
They both have this, yeah.
Willingness. That both parties have these 5 stages: willingness, arousal, plateau, climax, and recovery. Willingness is how it starts. Arousal, the beginning of the feeling, and for arousal is different for men as it is for women. For men, it's so easy to go from stage 1 willingness to stage 2 arousal. Right. They don't look at it as 2 different stages, but they do need to do that and maybe help their spouse out a little bit, because she doesn't just jump from willingness to arousal. When she's willing, then she makes a decision to allow him to then help her with the arousal, and that's something that the 2 of you need to discuss, what she likes and doesn't like, to help her get there so that she's ready to continue in the process with you, and it could be enjoyable for both of you.
Because a man wants to just have sex with a woman without any of that recovery, arousal and stuff, it's molestation. It is. Mm-hmm. You got to warm this lady up.
It's not just about,
you got to keep her warm all day long.
It's not just about using her body for your pleasure. It's about both of you enjoying
it.
That's
molesting.
Right?
Don't do that.
Right.
That's how God planned it.
So if a woman is not willing, then she'll get mad when you're trying to touch her, right? So he says, with lovemaking in mind, I highly recommend that spouses be affectionate while becoming aroused, because it's not just sex, it's a bonding experience. It is a bonding experience.
Closeness. Good barometer of the marriage is how's her sex life. Because men justify stuff that we shouldn't be doing if they don't have sex. Okay.
Right. So, and men are don't forget, men are very visual, and so that's something I did want to talk about in the arousal stage. Men are very visual, and so it talks about in here about how easily they are to get aroused because they're so visual, and sometimes they just enjoy watching their wife get undressed for bed, get ready for bed, and then they get turned on, and sometimes, and sometimes he talks about how pornography almost becomes a joke among women, but for men it is genuine sexual stimulation.
But women do have that, like erotic novels, 50 Shades of something, gray, 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, there are the same thing for women as there are for men in that regard too. Just to let you know. Go ahead, baby.
Okay, so but one thing, ladies, you do need to be the one. I mean, some men just have a problem with pornography, but don't forget that your husband is visually stimulated. So
but pornography is wrong.
So absolutely, pornography is wrong.
No way.
So, or ever, pornography is wrong, regardless of marriage. It's wrong. So, but women don't. Your husband is a visual creature, and he married you looking one way. And we need to try to do our best to stay that way. As I mentioned earlier, I was really overweight at one point, not during our marriage. It was in a previous life. But I get up every day, even like when I don't go to work outside of the home, Well, we work out every day together. We get up every morning. We've said before, we have our devotion time together. We work
pray.
out. We pray, which is our devotion time. We work out together, and I still go and get ready, and I do my makeup and my hair. Take my shower, do my hair and my makeup. I look good. I mean, I like dress nice. I still dress nice for my day, even if I'm not leaving the house, even if I'm working from home. You know why? Because when my husband comes home for lunch or comes home after work, I still want to look my best for him, because I still want to be attracted to him. I still want to be the one that turns him on.
And sometimes that turns her
visual.
on. Sometimes that turns her on just as much as anything else.
Because he's visual.
Because she looks at herself in the mirror and says, man, I look good. So that gives her self-confidence. Maybe to get more naked or whatever.
So endorphins, when you're working out, sometimes as much as a man may continually do his part and try to give you all the affection and fill all your needs, and you still don't want sex, maybe it's because you don't feel good about yourself, right? Because if you don't feel good about yourself, you're not likely to want to have sex. If you're overweight, if you're eating sugar and carbohydrates and the bad carbs and processed foods, those are likely to decrease your sex drive. So when you're working out, you're releasing the endorphins that make you feel better about yourself. Doing your hair and your makeup, I feel good. If I feel like I look good, then I feel good. I feel frisky, right? And today I got in a pair of shorts that hadn't been in. I didn't wear last summer, and I was so excited. About that. Yeah, so because I feel good about myself. Love because her. I'm in these shorts
Cherish
again.
Her.
So just remember how you feel
about
yourself.
Good. How you look good.
How you feel about yourself is definitely going to play out in the bedroom.
She's hot.
I know women who are overweight, who never want their husbands to see them naked, and he's visual. He wants to see you naked. He married you. Even if he married you overweight, then that still turns him on. If he didn't, then you need to stay. I'm just saying.
It's when you got married. When you got married,
because not all men.
Sometimes
have that
it's good to look back at your marriage pictures, see how we look back then. How we take care of ourselves.
Right. So then we go to the plateau, which we all understand that. The climax, which we all understand. And the one thing I want to say about the climax is sometimes that's more difficult for women, and sometimes that causes a lot of tension in the marriage because he puts a lot of pressure on her to climax, or feels like it's not pointless if she doesn't climax, and then that puts a lot of pressure on her and it makes it more difficult. Let your wife decide what she wants to do. All right.
But anxiety. Wait for your wife, man.
Anxiety over whether or not to do that has no place in a fulfilling sexual relationship.
Right.
Okay, and then afterwards you have the recovery, and so ladies, when after women do, they're this sense of peace, and they just want to be loved and held and talked to. But men don't experience that feeling. They're like, okay, I'm ready to go to bed, and that's not anything personal. And so sometimes women will take that personally, and it's not personal. So don't take his sudden loss of sexual interest as a rejection of you. It's not. It's just the way God made them. It's the way God made them. They're done. They've had their release. They're done. Okay? It doesn't mean he no longer loves you. He still loves you. He's just ready to go to sleep. Okay?
In most cases.
In most cases. Then there are problems with there are some marriages who really have sexual issues. And if that is your marriage, then there are different things you can do to get help for that. In most cases, sexual tension and problems can be solved just by some education, just educating yourself.
Communicate with each other.
Read books together. Get books about it. Read them together.
Like
we do. And then if there's still a problem that's beyond the scope of your actually being able to have a conversation or read about it, then go see a sex therapist.
Read the Bible. Read the Bible, guys.
Song of Solomon's hot.
Song of Solomon.
It's hot.
Read the
okay.
Bible.
So, but also there are very good trained sex therapists out there. Okay, and then sometimes sex might not be a husband's need, and that's called the reluctant husband.
It
right?
might be the wife's need.
The reluctant
So
husband. So sometimes, and we've had women reach out to us, more than one woman.
How can I get my husband to
have sex?
Same thing. Have sex.
I want sex. My husband doesn't. He's not interested. So,
testosterone.
So one of the things is a lot of times the testosterone is dropped, and especially as they get older, the testosterone may drop. So maybe just having some testosterone supplements, getting a physical from the doctor. Another factor is some men have a problem with masturbation. If they're doing that, I don't care. If they're doing that, then they are not leaving it for their wife.
Outside of marriage, right?
And they're not leaving it for their wife. So
that's wrong.
You gotta not do that.
Do it God's way.
Leave what you have for your wife. All right. The second one is sexual awareness. Sometimes, as men get older, they may think that they're always going to be able to have no problems with that, and sometimes they do, and then they aren't able to finish once they start, and then because of that, they don't want to do it because they fear that sexual failure. So they have that. They don't want to set themselves up for sexual failure because they've had it happen in the past. So they don't want to do that. And sometimes medication helps with that problem, and also trying different positions and techniques according to the book. The third thing is sexual motivation. So sometimes, ladies, we can be very demanding, disrespectful, and angry. So if towards your husband, we can really nitpick them and put them down. And if your husband is reluctant, then check to see if you are guilty of that. Because a husband still has emotions, even though it's a physical need, it's still an emotional need for them also. And if his wife has been nasty, then he's less likely to want to have sex with her.
It should be great for both the man and the wife in the sexual relationship. Okay, guys? His needs, her needs. This is her first one, my first one. We still got 4 more to go each. That's 8 more. So it's important to find your spouse's top 5 needs, both of you. You can't have one without the other. You meet your wife's needs, your spouse's needs, you're more likely to get your needs met. Find out what they are. Communicate. Do it. Talk to each other. Don't let your spouse be a stranger. We hear that from many people. They can't communicate with their spouse. Talk to them. The devil wants to destroy your marriage. Don't justify anything. Because meet each other's needs. That doesn't give the devil, then you don't have any grounds to get in that marriage. Make it a fair-proof marriage God's way. Okay? Devil wants to destroy it. Don't do it. He wants to destroy your kids. Don't let them. We love you guys.
All right. Have a great week.
Jesus.
Pray for our country. Pray for our nation.
We love you.
Pray for each other.
Meet each other's needs.
We can have some peace. And pray for your marriages.
We pray all the time for marriages.
We do.
We just, because we know that this world is doomed and going to hell.
One more thing, ladies. I talked about the physical aspect of sex, but also women are, especially with young children, we're really guilty of not making time for our husband. We come to bed at night and we're so exhausted because we've had all this responsibility.
So we should what, every week go on dates?
So we should be intentionally go on dates. So carve out time.
A weekend maybe?
Carve out time for him. It's not all about the kids. Your marriage comes before those kids. And I know if you're in a season of when they're young, babies, toddlers, it doesn't seem like it's ever going to be that way.
Grandkids.
But trust me, when you're taking care of each other and you're modeling a healthy marriage for them, they're better off served than if
priorities.
You don't make them the center.
God first.
Marriage
partner second. Kids third. Okay.
God should be the center of your world, not the children.
Love you guys. Amen.
Right?
Thank you.
Okay, y'all have a great week.
So we invite. Okay, love you.
Love you. Bye. Over here.